Hello everyone, welcome to lecture number 49 of SWAYAM BHU course on Fundamentals of Economics and Financial Markets. Myself Dr. Anand Singh, and in this video I will be discussing with all of you regarding one of the prominent stock market of our country, that is Bombay Stock Exchange. Now in this video I will be discussing with all of you on 6 major key points, and those key points are: point number 1, when and how Bombay Stock Exchange was established. In the second major key point, I will be discussing with all of you regarding the impact of American Civil War on Bombay Stock Exchange. In this particular segment, we will discuss that what kind of impact does the American Civil War has upon the establishment of Bombay Stock Exchange. In the third segment, I will be discussing with all of you regarding the organization of Bombay Stock Exchange. That means at the time of establishment of Bombay Stock Exchange, what kind of organization it was, and nowadays what kind of organization Bombay Stock Exchange is. This will be discussed by me in the third segment. In the fourth segment, I will be discussing with all of you regarding the classification of stocks which are listed over Bombay Stock Exchange. That means all the securities, especially all the shares which are listed over the Bombay Stock Exchange, they are basically classified under how many categories. This will be discussed by me in the fourth segment. In the fifth segment, I will be discussing with all of you regarding BOLT, that means BSE, that means Bombay Stock Exchange online trading platform, what kind of platform it is, and some other important features of BOLT will be discussed by me in the fifth segment. In the last segment of this video, I will be discussing with all of you regarding the important indexes which are prepared and displayed by Bombay Stock Exchange. Some of the important indexes are, for example, Sensex is there, BSE 100 index is there, BSE 200, BSE 500, BSE Dolex is there. Some of these indexes will be discussed in detail by me in the last segment of this particular video. Now, let us start this video. In the first segment, we will discuss regarding when and how Bombay Stock Exchange was established. All of us knows that BSE was established in 1875 under the name Native Shares and Stock Brokers Association. Now, BSE, that means Bombay Stock Exchange, it is also regarded as the oldest Asian and the 10th oldest stock market of the entire world. Actually, in 1850, 4 Gujarati persons along with 1 Parsi stockbrokers gathered together under a banyan tree in front of Bombay Town Hall, where Horniman Circle is nowadays situated. So, initially there were merely 5 persons, 4 of them were Gujarati and 1 was Parsi, and all the 5 persons were basically stock brokers. So, we can say that initially all these 5 persons who basically established the Bombay Stock Exchange in 1850, they were brokers and they may be regarded as the initial promoters of Bombay Stock Exchange. Although this particular organization, that means Bombay Stock Exchange, which was established by these persons in 1850, it was not an organized organization. It was not an organized form of organization. Later on, BSE was founded in 1855 when 22 stockbrokers met under a banyan tree in South Bombay. But when BSE was established in 1855, this was also not a formal kind of organization. It was still an informal organization. Now, later on, in 1861, the American Civil War, it just broke out. Now, let us see what was the impact of American Civil War upon the establishment of BSE as a formal organization or as a recognized stock market. American Civil War was fought from 1861 to 1865 between northern states and the southern states of United States of America. The war was caused by a number of factors, including disagreements over slavery, states' rights and election of Abraham Lincoln. But what was our concern, or what is basically our concern regarding American Civil War and its impact upon the establishment of Bombay Stock Exchange is that when the American Civil War broke out, the cotton supplies from the US merchants were cut off. Basically, the American merchants, they used to supply good quality cotton to the industries which were established in the European countries, especially England. So, the industries of England, they used to accept good quality cotton from the merchants of America. But due to this particular war, that means due to American Civil War, this supply was cut off. That means the European countries, they basically stopped accepting good quality cotton from the American industries. Or you can say that the American traders, they were not in a position to supply their cotton to the industries which were established in the European countries. So, the supply was basically cut off because of American Civil War. Next, the European countries needed cotton, although the supply was cut off, but still in order to operate their industries, the European countries, they needed cotton. So, they started accepting cotton from the Indian industries or from the Indians. Although the cotton, the quality of Indian cotton was not good, it was not superior quality, it was actually inferior quality. But then also, in order to run their industries, the Britishers or the European industries, they started accepting the inferior quality cotton from the Indian merchants. Now, this particular thing, that means the supply, the sudden supply of Indian cotton to the Britishers or to the European countries, it increased the supply of cotton from India to the Europe. Now, the raw cotton exports from India increased and the price of raw cotton shot up. It benefited the Indian brokers dealing in cottons. So, large number of brokers, they were attracted in India towards this particular segment, that means supply of cotton to the European countries. But in 1865, the American Civil War ended, and as the war ended, again the American merchants, they started supplying the good quality cotton to the European industries, and because of it, the European industries who were initially accepting cotton from the Indians, they stopped accepting the inferior quality from India, and because of this, the demand for Indian cotton fell sharply and it leads to a stock market crash. So, we can say that in 1865, when actually the Bombay Stock Exchange, it was not in existence in the form of organized stock market, then also stock market crash was there. That means because of this particular supply break with the demand of the cotton supply, which was stopped by the European industries, because of that particular lack of demand from the European industries, there was a stock market crash, especially in Bombay Stock Exchange, which was not under organized sector during 1865. Now, this crash was the first major event of its kind in Indian history. Later on, BSE was founded by Premchand Roy Chand in 1875 under the name Native Shares and Stock Brokers Association. So, we can say that actually the Bombay Stock Exchange, it came into existence in the form of organized sector or in the form of basically association under the name of the Native Shares and Stock Brokers Association in the year 1875. And we can also say that initial promoters were, or it basically includes persons like Premchand Roy Chand. Later on, a decade later, the brokers moved their location to under the banyan tree at the junction of Meadows Street. Nowadays, it is called as MG Road, that is Mahatma Gandhi Road in Bombay or Mumbai. With a rapid increase in the number of brokers, they had to shift places repeatedly. That means due to increase in the number of brokers who were basically attracted towards the stock markets, because of the large increase in the number of brokers, the brokers used to shift their places. That means they used to shift from a smaller area to a comparative bigger area within the city Bombay of that time itself. Finally, at last in 1874, the brokers found a permanent location and they established an official organization known as the Native Shares and Stock Brokers Association in 1875. That means this particular place where the today's Bombay Stock Exchange is situated, that means in PJ Towers, that was basically located by the brokers during 1874. But finally in 1875, that particular organization was recognized as or under the name the Native Shares and Stock Brokers Association. And so in this way, we can say that the American Civil War had a great impact upon the establishment of Bombay Stock Exchange in our country. Nowadays, BSE is located in PJ Towers, that is Firoji Jijibhoy Towers, who was basically the chairman of BSE till 1966. So, he was a very great personality, and under his name that particular tower has been named, and under that particular tower the current Bombay Stock Exchange is operating in our country, and it is situated in Dalal Street of Mumbai. Now let us move to the next segment where we will discuss with regarding the organization of Bombay Stock Exchange. That means what kind of organization it was at the time of its establishment and what kind of organization it is. So let us start this particular segment. In 1875, when Bombay Stock Exchange was actually established in the form of a formal organization that was named as Voluntary Association of Persons. It was basically a kind of voluntary association of persons organizations. That means the name of the organization was the Native Shares and Stock Brokers Association, but it was a kind of voluntary association of persons organization. Now, what is the specialty of voluntary association of persons kind of organizations? Under such kind of organizations, that means under voluntary association of persons, all the three major segments of the stock markets, that is ownership, management and trading rights, all these three segments were more or less controlled by the brokers. So, under voluntary association of persons kind of organizations, all the three important segments of the stock markets, that is ownership, management and trading rights, were fully under the control of brokers. So, in 1875 when BSE was established, it was basically a kind of voluntary association of persons organization, and the entire sectors, all the three sectors of BSE were more or less under the control of brokers. Later on, in 1957, this Bombay Stock Exchange was basically recognized by the government as per the provisions of Securities Contract Regulations Act 1956. So, Bombay Stock Exchange became the first recognized stock market of our country in the year 1957. Next, in 2001, the government of India basically proposed regarding corporatization of exchanges in our country. That means the government basically asked the existing stock market who were operating in the form of voluntary association of persons or in the form of company limited by guarantee. The government asked them to convert themselves into corporates. So, this particular theme or corporatization scheme was basically initiated by the government in the year 2001. Later on, in 2005, the government of India through SEBI, it introduced the BSE Corporatization and Demutualization Scheme 2005, the scheme announced by SEBI. So, such an scheme was basically launched by SEBI in order to corporatize and demutualize the Bombay Stock Exchange. Later on, in August 2005, Bombay Stock Exchange accepted this particular proposal. That means the scheme of corporatization and demutualization of Bombay Stock Exchange. The exchange accepted it in August 2005, and it is said that from August 2005, Bombay Stock Exchange was corporatized as well as demutualized. But let me clarify one thing here, that although Bombay Stock Exchange has accepted the scheme of corporatization and demutualization in August 2005, then also 100% corporatization or demutualization was not done in 2005. Yes, the scheme was accepted by the Bombay Stock Exchange. Later on, in 2007, it is said that corporatization and demutualization was achieved 100% by Bombay Stock Exchange. So, in 2007, actually Bombay Stock Exchange was fully corporatized and fully demutualized as per the expectations of SEBI, that is Securities and Exchange Board of India. Later on, in 2011, Bombay Stock Exchange Limited became the official name. That means prior to it, it was basically known as, initially it was known as the Native Shares and Stockbrokers Association. Later on, it was called as Bombay Stock Exchange Limited, and finally in 2011, it was regarded as BSE Limited. And in 2017, BSE becomes India's first listed stock exchange. All of us knows that Bombay Stock Exchange is also a kind of private limited company, because till 2007, as we have already discussed, that BSE was fully corporatized or it was fully demutualized. That means till 2007, Bombay Stock Exchange became private limited company. And since it is also a kind of company, that means it is also a private limited company which basically carries out its own functions or it carried out its own activities. So, in 2017, BSE Limited decided to list itself, that means to list this particular stock market on National Stock Exchange. So, finally, as a private limited company, BSE Limited was listed over National Stock Exchange in the year 2017, and it was the first Indian stock market which was basically listed over any stock exchange. Now, let us move to the next segment. In this particular segment, we will discuss regarding the trading days and hours of Bombay Stock Exchange. That means what are the trading timings and all other important timing related matters. The normal trading time for Bombay Stock Exchange is from 9:15 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. on every trading day. That means on every Monday to Friday. So, from Monday to Friday, the trading timings are, nowadays the trading timings are 9:15 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. and the traders can buy and sell their orders without any restrictions during this period. That means from 9:15 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. the traders, they can execute their buy and sell order without any kind of restrictions. Also, BSE is closed on every Saturday, Sunday and all other gusted holidays except special trading sessions which used to be conducted by Bombay Stock Exchange and National Stock Exchange. For example, Muhurat trading, which is basically conducted by Bombay Stock Exchange on Deepavali. So, if Muhurat trading is say on any gusted holiday, then also the trading will be done. Yes, the trading will not be done for the entire period, that means from 9:15 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. But still Muhurat trading basically is conducted for 1 hour, and although it is a gusted holiday, but for that particular period, for that particular 1 hour, the trading is executed at Bombay Stock Exchange. Also, the BSE pre-open sessions are 15 minutes. That means the actual trading, although they are started from 9:15 a.m., but there is a pre-opening hour which starts from 9 a.m. and which ends at 9:15 a.m. on every trading day. Now, during this particular session, that means during pre-opening session of 15 minutes, it basically contains the order matching period and collection period. So actual normal tradings are not executed from 9 a.m. to 9:15 a.m. but thereafter, that means from 9:15 a.m. onwards till 3:30 p.m. the normal tradings may be executed by the traders. In the next segment, we will discuss regarding the classification of securities which are listed over the Bombay Stock Exchange. Bombay Stock Exchange has, for the guidance and benefits of the investors, classified the securities in the equity segment into A, B, T and Z groups on certain quantitative and qualitative measures. Now, let us discuss regarding what is the meaning of category A shares and category B shares, especially in equity segment. A company, in order to get listed its securities in category A or category B shares at Bombay Stock Exchange, they must fulfill three important conditions. And those conditions are: point number one, a company must have been listed for a minimum period of 3 months. That means, in order to be recognized as a category A or category B share which is listed at Bombay Stock Exchange, the company must be listed over Bombay Stock Exchange for a minimum period of 3 months. Now, there are certain exceptions to this particular category, but as such, this parameter is applicable upon all kind of companies. The second parameter is the company traded for a minimum 98% of the trading days in last quarter. That means, in the last quarter of this particular or any particular year, at least 98% trading must have been conducted by the company. That means it is concerned with volatility or it is concerned with the liquidity, or you can say the stocks must be volatile in nature. They must be demanded by at least 98%. Either buy or sell order is conducted in the securities of that particular company by 98%, then only it may be classified under category A and category B securities. And the third parameter is the list of companies is further screened for investigation and compliance by Department of Surveillance and Supervision, that is DOSS. That means all those companies who have fulfilled the parameter 1 and parameter 2, then DOSS, that is Department of Surveillance and Supervision, will investigate into those companies, and it is mandatory for the companies to get a positive remark from DOSS. If negative remark is given by DOSS, then those companies will not be listed or their securities will not be listed under category A and category B shares of or which are listed with Bombay Stock Exchange. So, all these three parameters must be fulfilled by the companies if they are willing to list their securities over Bombay Stock Exchange under category A and category B shares. Now, let us move to the next segment, that is, what is the meaning of Z group of securities, and what about the government securities, and finally, what is the meaning of F group of securities. The T group represents securities which are settled on trade-to-trade basis as a surveillance measures, and the Z group was introduced by BSE in July 1999 and includes companies which have failed to comply with listing requirements. That means, if a company fails to fulfill the listing requirements by CLA, that is Central Listing Authority, or if a company fails to fulfill the listing requirements which were issued by Bombay Stock Exchange itself, then the securities of those particular companies will be fall under Z group of categories under Bombay Stock Exchange. Trading in government securities by the retail investors is done under G group. That means G group basically indicates the trading which is executed by the retail persons in government securities. And finally, The F group of securities basically indicates the fixed income securities. That means those securities which basically provides fixed income to the investors. So basically here the bonds, debts, etc., they are basically listed over the Bombay Stock Exchange under F group of securities. In the next segment, we will discuss regarding BOLT, that is Bombay Stock Exchange online trading. Now, in 1995, BSE introduced BOLT, that is Bombay Stock Exchange online trading mechanism. So it was basically introduced in the year 1995, and in 1997, BOLT system expanded nationwide. Remember one thing, in 1997, BSE was fully corporatized and demutualized, and later on, that means in 1997, BSE established its national level terminals with the help of BOLT. In 2001, 100% book building was allowed because of BOLT. We know that book building is basically a mechanism, or it is a basically price discovery mechanism. That means by adopting book building method, prices are discovered through the markets, through the primary markets. So 100% book building mechanism was permitted in 2001 through BOLT at Bombay Stock Exchange. In 2001 itself, the T plus 5 settlement cycle was basically accepted. Earlier, that means prior to 2001, it was more or less T plus 7 settlement cycle. In 2002, T plus 3 settlement cycle was accepted, and in 2003, T plus 2 settlement cycle was accepted by the Bombay Stock Exchange. Similarly, in 2022, at Bombay Stock Exchange, T plus 1 settlement cycle is there. Now, we can see there is a continuous reduction in the settlement cycle. Once it was T plus 7, but in 2022, it has been reduced to T plus 1. We can say that it is only because of BOLT. In 2010, the market timing changed from 9 am to 3:30 pm. Prior to 2010, basically the trade at Bombay Stock Exchange was executed merely for 2.5 hours or maximum for 3 hours. But due to BOLT, the trading time was expanded and it was from 9 am to 3:30 pm, and this time period started in the year 2010. In the 2010 itself, options were introduced on BOLT. Now, some of the important features of BOLT are: it enhanced security. Number 2, real-time informations are provided by BOLT. Third, order and trade management is basically executed. Fourth, report management has been enhanced. And finally, BOLT is interfaced with various information vendors including Bloomberg, Bridge and Reuters. Now, in the last segment, we will discuss regarding some of the important indexes which are prepared and displayed by Bombay Stock Exchange. And the most important index is Sensex. Sensex is basically known as sensitive index or BSE Sensex or BSE 30 index. Now, this particular Sensex, it is India's first equity index which was launched on 1st January 1986, and its base year was taken to be 1978-79, and the base year index value was taken as 100. It was operated by S&P, that means Standard and Poor. We know that it is basically a credit rating agency. So S&P used to prepare and display the BSE Sensex. The term Sensex was basically coined by Deepak Mohani, a stock market analyst in 1989. Sensex is a free float market weighted stock market index of 30 well established and financially sound companies listed at BSE. So we can say that Sensex, it basically indicates the index of top 30 companies which are listed over Bombay Stock Exchange. As such, there are thousands of companies which are listed over Bombay Stock Exchange, but the index, that means the fluctuations in the top 30 companies, the fluctuations in the prices of the top 30 companies listed over Bombay Stock Exchange, that is basically displayed with the help of BSE Sensex. Now, there are certain eligibility criteria to be included under Sensex, and those are: number one, the company must be listed over BSE. Point number two, the company must comes under a large, that means more than 10 billion US dollar, or a mega cap company, that means whose capital is ranging between 2 billion to 10 billion US dollars. Third category is the stocks should be relatively liquid. Fourth important parameter is it should generate revenue from core activities. And the last parameter in order to be regarded or in order to be included under Sensex is they should keep the sector balanced broadly in line with the Indian equity market. So if all these 5 parameters are fulfilled by any company, then only the shares of that particular company may be included under BSE Sensex. In the last video or in the next video, I will be discussing with all of you regarding OTCEI. So very thank you for watching this video.